Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys. All right, next episode. I just finished episode 11 of this series of World War II week by the World War II channel. And now we're going to the next episode, episode 12.
September 1st.
Oh, wait, no, it's episode 1 because I'm an idiot. Guys, I never really intended on going this far into the series. And so I saw this video at first, the first one I reacted to, and I just saw, oh, World War II begins. That'd be a cool video to watch. And then I just kept on watching. And so I just finished updating my playlist that I have on my channel so that if people want to keep watching my reactions through the videos, they don't have to keep finding them. I should put the playlist link in each of the video descriptions as well. But I never watched the part 1. So that's what we're doing right now. And then we'll get into episode 12. Hope everyone's doing well. My name's Connor. Original link, top description. I like to learn with you. Let's go.
On September 1st, 1939, the German army invades Poland and the Polish-German War of 1939 begins. What? Did you think I was going to say something else? Because that's all it is. A war, an undeclared war between two European nations.
Because I know a lot of countries, like America did in Spanish-American War, like blame the Maine on Spain. Maine was the name of a ship by the U.S., and it was blown up by the Spanish, but really it was an American excuse to go to war. And I know the Japanese, there was an incident with a train in Manchuria, a Japanese train that they blamed on the Chinese as a reason to invade Manchuria. But Germany just straight up just went into Poland. Interesting.
My name is Indy Nidell, and this channel, for the next 6 years, is going to cover the events of that war week by week in real time as it grows and spirals into the deadliest conflict in human history. There will also be special episodes that sum up how the world got to this point, specials about the people, the weapons, the technology of the war, and much more. There will be crossovers and collaborations with other channels and historians, and even a series on the war against humanity fought in countries on both sides. If you would really like to see how the world went from the end of the Great War to the beginning of this one, though, we've made an entire series called Between Two Wars that not only covers the events of the interwar period, but specifically how they relate to the world situation in 1939. The link is in the description. I know that some of you will point out that the events in Japan and China in the 1930s are part and parcel of the Second World War. Some see the Spanish Civil War as a beginning point, and some see the years 1914 to 1945 as a second 30 Years' War. All these arguments have merit, but I'm going to start here on September 1st, 1939, at the beginning of the Polish-German War.
Guys, what do you consider the Eastern Asian and the Pacific War and the Northern African, West Asian, European War as the same war? I know they're all World War II, and I know like the USA who fought the Japanese, and in Europe, and the Russians who did squabble and fight a bit with the Japanese, and also obviously in Europe. I mean, they weren't that connected. Am I wrong? I would love to hear your opinion on that.
On September 1st, 1939, at the beginning of the Polish-German War. Though it was actually supposed to begin already at the beginning of the week. On August 25th, Adolf Hitler orders the German attack to begin the 26th, but cancels the order at the last minute after learning Britain and Poland have signed a formal alliance, and that Benito Mussolini would not bring Italy into a war at this point on Germany's side. But on the 31st, Hitler decides to invade the following day. He signs the order at noon, and German troops move to the border.
Sorry, I love that photo of, like, I'm sure that this isn't what they're talking about, but it really does look like Mussolini, like Hitler's being like, yeah, you want to join in this war? And Mussolini's like, no, No.
At this point, on Germany's side.
No, I'm good.
But on the 31st,
I know
Hitler decides to invade the following day. He signs the order at noon, and German troops move to the border. At 8 p.m., the radio station at Gleiwitz is attacked. The attackers are SS men dressed in Polish uniforms. SS is Schutzstaffel, the Nazi paramilitary organization used for security, surveillance, and terror. Anyhow, they leave behind the bodies of some concentration camp inmates in Polish uniforms. When German troops begin their advance across the border the next morning, Hitler gives this Polish attack as one of the reasons for invasion.
Okay, so there was kind of a false thing.
That same evening, the Soviet Union, who had signed a sort of neutrality pact with Germany just over a week ago, beats the Japanese army far to the east. In fighting on the Mongolian border, Georgy Zhukov's forces overcome the final resistance of the Japanese 6th Army at Khalkhin Gol. So, as one war is coming to an end, another is beginning. Now, that Soviet-Japanese conflict is an undeclared war that has gone on for several months along the border. Although there'd been tension since Japan occupied Manchuria in 1931 and set up the puppet state of Manchukuo, and there were more and more frequent border clashes. I'll talk more about this in a few weeks, and we'll also cover Japan's invasion and war with China in between two wars. But here, in 1939, the Japanese on one side, and the Mongolians and Russians on the other, have different ideas as to what the actual border is. The fighting had escalated over the summer, but had become a stalemate by the end of July. Zhukov broke that stalemate by attacking on August 20th with artillery and aircraft in the first fighter-bomber offensive in Soviet history. Over 50,000 Soviet and Mongolian troops were on the east bank of the Khalkhin Gol River. As the infantry crossed the river, and the Air Force, and the artillery pinned down the Japanese center, armored units went around the flanks and encircled the Japanese from both sides. They were unable to break free, and the Russians kept hitting them with artillery, and by now, the Japanese forces on the Mongolian side of the border are destroyed. On September 15th, Japan and the Soviet Union will agree to a ceasefire. I mentioned that Germany and the Soviet Union had signed a pact, and they had the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, named after the two nations' foreign ministers who signed it. This was a non-aggression neutrality pact between the two, and it laid out Poland, Romania, Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia into German and Soviet spheres of interest.
Why put the non-aggression in there? Is there any difference between a neutrality pact and a non-aggression neutrality pact?
Anticipating some sort of possible territorial rearrangement of these countries in the very near future. Back in April, Stalin had actually proposed a military alliance with Britain and France, which was received with mixed feelings. In July, they began talks, but kept running into the stumbling block of Russian troops entering Polish soil if there was a need to contain Germany. The Poles figured, and rightly, that once there, those troops would never leave, so those talks weren't really going anywhere. But a pact with Germany, well, that would give Stalin what he wanted without having to fight. And for Hitler, it would divide potential enemies. Neither Berlin nor Moscow saw Poland as a legitimate state, and its borders had been established just 20 years ago in the Treaty of Versailles. True, the Poles had beaten the Red Army to secure their independence, famously demolishing it at the Battle of Warsaw. But Hitler and Stalin thought that Poland's whole existence was owed to Allied interference. The Poles, for their part, though they were aware that Russia was the enemy, were not aware of any immediate Soviet plans for Poland and were focused on the obvious threat of Germany. They knew that their army was not up for the task of beating the Wehrmacht, the German armed forces. If an attack came, their hopes were for an Anglo-French offensive in the west that would split the German forces. Well, that German attack now comes. On September 1st at 4:45 a.m., Germany invades Poland with no declaration of war. Operation Fall Weiß, Plan White, is 53 German divisions, including 6 armored. General Walter von Brauchitsch is the commander-in-chief, but here's the roll call. Fedor von Bock leads Army Group North, which is made up of the 3rd Army under Georg von Kuchler and the 4th Army under Gunther von Kluge. General Gerd von Rundstedt leads Army Group South, Johannes Blaskowitz with the 8th Army, Walter von Reichenau the 10th, and Wilhelm List the 14th. The Panzer Corps is under Heinz Guderian and Paul von Kleist. Air support, some 1,600 aircraft, is led by Albert Kesselring and Alexander Löhr. Rundstedt's forces advance from Silesia, and this is the main German attack. Blaskowitz is on the left, heading towards Poznan. List on the right towards Krakow, with Reichenau the main thrust in the center to the Vistula River between Warsaw and Sandomierz. Kuchler from East Prussia heads south to...
Oh, so it's like a mini Operation Barbarossa.
Vistula River between Warsaw and Sandomierz. Kuchler from East Prussia heads south towards Warsaw and the Bug River to the east. Kluge will cross the Polish corridor and then head south. The Polish have 23 divisions, though 7 more are being put together. 1 armored division and not a whole lot of artillery. They do have a lot of cavalry, and this is a good time to dispel the myth.
Guys, what if you I'm not saying just in this war, but in any war, but say with this area, right? Or in like this area. What if you carefully moved your troops to where they are, the German troops are, and then put very few troops here, but make an offensive and make it look, which would make it look to the Polish like, oh my God, we can easily beat them, and then have them actually fight and push into Germany, which would make them even further, and even if they capture a little German territory for a small time, it would make the encirclement of Poznan in the region even easier, and would keep troops even further away to cut off your lines here. Or would that just be too obvious?
Corridor and then head south. The Polish have 23 divisions, though 7 more are being put together. 1 armored division and not a whole lot of artillery. They do have a lot of cavalry, and this is a good time to dispel the myth that Polish cavalry spent the war attacking tanks with lances. Although this day does see a Polish cavalry charge to cover retreating infantry, which scatters German infantry, but behind that was armored cars with machine guns.
All right, until I'm proved otherwise, the Polish are the most brave people in World War II. I'm sorry, that's how I feel. Until I'm proven otherwise, I'm not an expert. I think the Polish are the most brave soldiers, facing insane odds and going out with a fight, and a lot of people fleeing to Britain, then being ruthless soldiers for them to take back. I think the Medal of Courage, if it has to go to a nation's army, should go to Poland.
Although this day does see a Polish cavalry charge to cover retreating infantry, which scatters German infantry, but behind that was armored cars with machine guns that kills half the attackers within minutes. There are 2, and only 2 occasions, according to Max Hastings, in which Polish horsemen engage tanks. Anyhow, the Polish reserves are called up August 31st, so they're not yet mobilized. They have 500 planes, but these are obsolete compared to the Germans. Polish commander Edward Rydz-Smigły has his strongest forces in the northwest, especially Poznan and the Polish corridor. His plan is to hold the Germans to only gradual gains. However, since he's put his men so far forward, he risks serious defeat if his units are overrun before reinforcements from the reserves can arrive. The German method of attack is anything but a repeat of 1914. First, sudden air attacks will try to destroy the Polish Air Force while it's still on the ground. Bombers will go for railways and roads, but also drop their payloads on civilian centers, creating mass panic and confusion. This chaos is made worse by aircraft also machine gunning civilian refugees fleeing from advancing soldiers. Just in the first few hours, the Polish government reports that 130 Poles are killed by air raids on Polish towns like Warsaw and Gdynia. Further attacks come by land, of course. Waves of motorized infantry and light tanks push as far ahead as possible. heavier tanks make their way through the countryside, bypassing fortified positions. Eventually, the infantry, supported by artillery, will come after to mop up whatever pockets of resistance remain. Hitler's plan here is not simply to regain territory lost in 1918 at the end of the Great War. He wants to impose German rule on Poland. In fact, behind the infantry, he has sent in 3 SS Death's Head regiments to take care of police and security measures in the new territory. Today, September 1st, at Sachsenhausen concentration camp, one of their bases, their commander, Theodor Eicke, explains to his officers just what those police and security measures are. In protecting Hitler's Reich, Eicke explained, the SS would have to incarcerate or annihilate every enemy of Nazism, a task that would challenge even the absolute and inflexible severity which the Death's Head regiments had learned in the concentration camps.
In protecting Hitler's Reich, Eicke explained the SS would have to incarcerate or annihilate every enemy of Nazism. This is what I don't understand. A task that would challenge even the absolute and inflexible severity which the Death's Head regiment had learned in the concentration camps. What does that mean? They're the SS. They're used to this stuff. Okay, I understand. So Eicke is saying that the SS would have to go above and beyond even their ruthlessness in concentration camps to subdue the Polish. So it's saying annihilate and incarcerate every enemy of Nazism, a task that would even challenge the most ruthless.
A task that would challenge even the absolute and inflexible severity which
that might even be hard for even the most ruthless of the Death's Head regiments at concentration camps, I think.
Death's Head regiments had learned in the concentration camps. Britain and France demand that Germany withdraw from Poland. The British army is mobilized.
Okay, what are you going to do? That's what you're going to say. Do nothing.
And the
I'm from America. It's not like we're proactive. So
evacuation of young children from London and other areas thought vulnerable begins on this day 1 of the Polish-German War of 1939.
At what point, I wonder if you deny and abstain from following threats, maybe it's better to give no more ultimatums than to give more. Because if you're already not following through and then you keep saying, oh, you better not do this. All right, you did it. Okay, you better not do this. Well, the more you say you better not do this, they're just going to take you less seriously. And maybe saying nothing would be a little more fearing for the Germans. Because it might be like, okay, they're getting ready.
Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf, his political manifesto autobiography, that not only should people of the same blood be in the same Reich, but that once this had been achieved, then Germany would have the moral right to take foreign territory. He lays out his policy on page 1. But even though every German couple was given one by the registry office when they married, and even though he had steered Germany towards war for years, a great many people did not take him seriously and chose to believe his recent statements that he did not want war. They should have instead believed him when he wrote this about his plans once all the Germans were part of the Reich. The plow is then the sword, and the tears of war will produce the daily bread for generations to come. If you would like to check out that Between Two Wars series and get more background to this series, you can click right here for that.
Okay, great episode. I should have started with this one to begin with. So clearly this is a good insight into a man who has 100% focus on this idea of creating a land for Germans to become more powerful, more genetically pure, and genetically superior, which will then, it's like today's blood will fuel a more genetic, pure, all ultimate German area. Well, they will then be unstoppable and conquer more. And it's like that. That's why I think he is apathetic. It feels like he is more apathetic than just. It's not. It feels like his goal isn't the sick satisfaction of seeing lesser people die, or I guess that is. It's just like they are animals to him, and it's like whatever means, make them not alive anymore. I have a goal in mind. It's an ends to a mean, or a means to an end. End of story. Which is almost more scary than like a Genghis Khan, who's just like, I want to kill everyone I see. They're both pretty scary. One main thing I want to ask, and I understand it might be because it's hindsight, but why wouldn't, and I know that the French and the English, they were still, even though they won World War, they came out victorious after World War I, and they had to rebuild what they had, even with reparations. But after World War I, they don't have a familiar monarch like they had in Alexander II in Russia, in the Russian Empire. They now have the Soviets, who a lot of people don't like communism and don't trust Stalin. And they have a Germany who was defeated, but looks like they're ramping up, and now they have a very tyrannical ruler coming to power. Wouldn't it be in their best interest to really, really support Poland in the interwar years? Not even just for Poland's benefit, but for their benefit, to just be like this bulwark of military strength in between German and Soviets. And so I wonder if there was ever a thought, and I'm in hindsight because I know what happens in World War II or at the beginning of World War II, but I feel like it would have been a very good idea, especially since Poland was your ally, to beef up their military as much as possible, to at least make their neighbors second guess their thoughts of invading them, and also be strong enough to give time and make it seem like it's a good idea for effort to come to their aid more immediately, But I know this is hindsight, and it's still just a question I have. Love y'all. Hope you're all doing well. Would appreciate any comments you have down below, and hopefully I see you now on episode 12 or any other videos I post. See you guys next time. Bye.